Hello, and welcome to our Feature of the Week video series on Monolix Suite by Simulations Plus. Today we will show you how to customize tables in PKanalix reporting. As professionals in this field, you understand the importance of robust, clear and compliant reporting. And it's not just about internal communication, but it's also about creating regulatory-grade documents that effectively describe complex analysis. This is why in this video we will explore different techniques to customize tables and other features that can improve your report. First, I will cover how to select the content of a table, change its orientation, and how to split and filter it. Then I will show you examples how to rename parameters and covariates in a report. When we have occasions, all these techniques will work as well, but I will show you a few more that are specific for tables with occasions. And after that, I will go through display settings and explain you how to create and use custom table styles. Finally, I will give you some additional good practice tips. Throughout this tutorial, I will use real-world examples to illustrate different customization methods. And I encourage you to follow along with me with your projects or with the same projects I'm going to use that you can download in the video description. You can pause the video at any time and try new features immediately. In the previous video, we explained how to generate a report in PKanalix, how to build a report template, and we gave you some basic examples to write placeholders. So let's start with a quick recap how to create a custom report in PKanalix. To generate a report, I go to the Export in the top menu and click on Generate Report. Here I select Custom as a report type and I need to select a template, which is a Word document containing placeholders for your plots and tables. Placeholders are special codes that PKanalix recognizes and replaces with actual settings, plots and tables during report generation. The placeholders can be keywords in the percentage sign or can be specified in the placeholder marks. Now you can modify these placeholders using placeholders widgets in PKanalix directly. For each table and a plot, with this icon here, we can adapt the placeholder. Tables have significantly more flexibility in reporting than we have available in the GUI, which is not the case for plots, as all customization that is available in reporting can be done directly with the plot settings, stratification and preferences. And this additional flexibility for tables is the reason why this video is going to be focused on customization of tables in reporting. Let's start from the general structure of a table placeholder. It contains four main groups of settings. Data describes reference task, type of tables, and the content of rows and columns. Display manages how the information will be shown in reporting. Stratification allows to split and filter a table. And renamings will replace certain words and expressions with a user-defined phrases. Each of these sections has specific arguments for customization, and they are all described in our documentation. You can go to PKanalix website, reporting, and then change list of table settings. So now let's look at a few examples of table customization. I'm using a simulated dataset of a single ascending dose. Individuals received either an oral dose of 50, 100 or 150 milligrams or an IV dose of 0.5 milligrams with infusion duration of 1 hour. The PK measurements in plasma are in nanograms per milliliter. The dataset has also two categorical covariates, dose and route, and one continuous covariate weight. I already created a PKanalix project where I loaded this dataset, specified unit scaling to adapt the dose amount units to the concentration units. We can look, of course, at plots which are here stratified by route and by dose. and I already ran NCA scenarios and have the results. Now I'm going to show you different examples of modifications of placeholders, but do not hesitate to try the examples with me. You can open a PKanalix project that you can download, as I mentioned, from the link in the video description, or you can open any project that you have and stop the video whenever you want and try to customize placeholders in the same way as I am going to do. We start with the customization methods to adapt the content of a table. For this example, I'm going to take the NCA summary table and I click on the widget for placeholder where I can modify it directly, and with the preview I can see the effect of the changes. So first, let's modify the metric that I want to include in my table and which parameters I will show. For simplicity, I'm going to keep only mean and standard deviation as a metric, and only two parameters, AUC to infinity and Cmax. I will remove the units for now and keep significant digits too. This is the modified table. Now let's change the direction of the metrics. So instead of horizontal, to put vertical. And now the mean and standard deviation are in each row and the values are in columns for each parameter. Now let's see how to split a table. When you create a template, to reduce the error, the easiest way to define stratification is directly in the GUI. Here you have the stratification groups where covariates are allocated automatically, and when you split and filter, placeholders will be automatically updated. However, for the learning purpose, I'm going to write first placeholder stratification step by step so that we can understand how it is defined. So let's go back to our previous placeholder and let's say that we want to split the results for oral and infusion route. Filtering and splitting are in the special section called stratification. First, I have to specify groups of covariates. They are in square bracket. Because I can have several covariates for stratification, each covariate now must be in a separate curly bracket, which will be separated by a comma. Now for each covariate, I specify its name as it is in the dataset, and under definition, I have to give a list of modalities also in square bracket. So each modality must be further in square bracket as well. First IV, then oral. Now I can remove the remaining covariate examples. The definition of splitting is in the state argument, and this line will be in curly brackets with the argument split. And I specify which covariate will be used for splitting. So here is the result. We have the metrics for the IV and oral separately. I can also filter a table to display, for example, only data with oral administration. Filter selects modalities that I want to include in a table exactly in the same way as we do it in the interface. As split, it is specified in the state argument in square brackets. Now I need to specify a list of covariates and their modalities that will be used in a table. Here I want oral administration only, so I'm going to select root as my covariate, and I need to specify which modality I want to use. I have oral, which is second in a row, so in square bracket I put number 2. And now I have a table which shows results only after an oral administration. So now you understand how the stratification is defined, where we have groups and then splitting and filtering in the states. Of course, this was just a demonstration to let you know how it is built, but in real example, when you build your template, we recommend that you always use splitting and filtering in the interface so that you reduce the number of errors that can come by writing this by hand. Now let's split the table by two covariates, root and dose. For that, I'm going to use the stratification through the graphical interface. However, if I close this widget with modifications to the data and display, these changes will be lost. So what I can do is I can copy this part with, for example, Ctrl+C. Now I will go to interface, do the splitting, and I will paste this information to my new placeholder. So I close it. In the splitting, I first split by root, then by those, and I'm going to filter with oral root. Now if I go to the placeholder, the data and display is the default one, so I can remove it and paste my previous information, and the stratification is done according to the stratification I did in the GUI. Note that when you do stratification in the GUI, the modalities are ordered alphabetically, which here is not the increasing dose group, but you can modify it directly here. When you stratify, the order of split matters. So in the GUI, I first stratify by root and then by dose. And this order of splitting will be reflected in a table that you use in the reporting. First is root and then dose column. There is additional argument called split direction, where you can define if you want to split by covariate vertically or horizontally. And each covariate has its own setting. So let's see how the table will look like if I use horizontal split direction instead of vertical. Now we have IV here and oral here. Now let's see how we can split a table by a continuous covariate, and also how we can split a table which does not have splitting option in the interface. So for example, individual estimates table. So individual estimates table does not have stratification option, but we can reuse the stratification from the summary table. So let's see how to do it. First, I'm going to split instead of those by weight, and I'm going to customize my weight groups. I would like to have 3 weight intervals, so I add additional interval with interval breaks at 65 and 80. We see that this table in the GUI is updated. I'm going to now use the placeholder, but instead of NCA summary table, I would like to have individual estimates table. It is enough that in the matrix, I put ID, and then as usual, I select the parameters I'm interested in. Remove the units. I change the matrix direction to vertical and set the significant digits to 2 as previously. Stratification is done automatically with vertical split direction for each covariate. In order to have weight in different columns, I can put here horizontal split direction for this covariate. In this way, in the table, each row corresponds to one ID, and in the columns I have parameters for each weight category. We can complement the individual estimates table with summary metrics. To do that, if I want, for example, mean and coefficient of variation calculated for each covariate group, I add in the matrix mean and coefficient of variation. They will be placed at the bottom for each category. I can easily construct also a concentration table, which is available in the GUI. Going back to the previous placeholder, I write table concentrations and remove the parameters. The ID, mean and CV remains as metrics. As this table tends to be quite big, I can change the font size to a smaller value and remove the splitting by root and weight, and now I remove also the split direction as it is not applied anymore. When you click on preview, we can change the layout to landscape orientation. In this table, each line corresponds to one ID and each column corresponds to one time point, with mean and coefficient of variation displayed in the last 2 rows. To make a report more readable and compliant with company and regulatory guidelines, it is often necessary to adapt naming conventions. One option to customize, for example, parameter names in PKanalix are aliases. You can access aliases from settings in the top menu under preferences in the section dedicated to NCA parameters renamings. When you click on box, you can edit the text. It will be displayed in all tables and plots in the interface as well as in reporting. Moreover, as the aliases are in the preferences of the PKanalix, they will be applied to all projects that you create. You can also access aliases with this icon here in the table to select parameters. If for any reason you want a special renaming of parameters in your report, or you need to rename covariate modalities, for example, you can use the renaming section of placeholders. So let's go back to the previous example with the individual estimates table that is split by root and by dose. I would like to rename them in a different way, as well as I would like to rename, for example, the parameter flag RSQ_adjusted. To do that, I need additional section called renamings. For example, IV I rename as infusion, and oral I will replace with oral formulation. And I will use a renaming for the parameter flag with the following formula. Let's see how the table looks like now. We have a parameter replaced with a new expression, and also IV and oral have new text. You can see in this table that some cells are empty, and in fact they correspond to not and none numbers which are not displayed. We can replace them, for example, with NC or any other text. To do that, first in the display section I have to set to true to display all not a number values, and then I put a renaming to change not a number to, for example, NC. And you can see here that the cells have been updated. In case of occasions, all methods I just showed you will work in the same way. Let's now look on one more example, very specific to occasions. For this example, I'm going to use a demo project of theophylline with a single dose. It is a crossover study with individuals who received once a reference and once a test formulation of the drug. In PKanalix, the occasion column to distinguish different periods has to be an integer. However, very often we have additional column which is tagged as categorical covariate that has strings to differentiate easily between, for example, reference and test formulation. Now let's go to the results for the individual estimates table and let's look at the placeholder. For simplicity, as in previous examples, I will remove some of the parameters to keep just 2. I click on preview. What we have in this table is the column period, which describes each occasion, and it contains integers. In fact, much better it would be to use a form next to the ID column here. To do that, first I need to hide occasion column, and this can be done in the data section with argument number occasion displayed 0. And then in the covariate argument, instead of all, I will just put form, which includes the information if I have a reference or test formulation. And for the argument covariates after parameters, I will put false, so that the column form will be next to the ID column. And this is the result I obtained. So far, I showed you how to choose metrics, tables and parameters, change direction of a table, split and filter its content, and how to apply different names to parameters and covariates, that is, renamings. Now, to complete the list of customization options, let's go through the options in the display section. We've already seen the effect of metric direction. Horizontal means that statistics are in columns and values are shown horizontally in rows for each parameter. And the vertical direction is a transposed view. Units equals to true, we'll add units in the table. And with additional argument inline units equal to true, we get that the units are in the same line as the parameter name. Then with the significant digits argument, we specify with integer a number of significant digits to which we round the values in the table, and the trailing zeros with option true or false means if the trailing zeros should be shown in the table or not. With font size, you can change the size of the text as we did for a concentration table. If you use fit to content equal true, which is a default when you create a placeholder in the GUI, then the width of the table will be equal to the width of the content. Otherwise, the width of the table will be equal to the width of the page itself. There are additional 2 arguments for caption. One is to include a text that will be displayed in the table caption. Know that it can contain reporting keywords such as project file name. And the second argument is caption above true or false to place the caption above or below a table. Now let's see a last example, that is how to create and apply your custom style for a table. When you generate a report, using a custom template, you can specify a style from the predefined styles that are in the pop-up window. But you can also create your own style in Word and then use it in a placeholder, which will override the general one selected here. So let's see how to do it. First, I will create a table in Word and specify my own style. To create a new table style in Word, you select a table, table design, and here at the bottom you have new table style. So let's do some changes. For example, first I give it name my BE style. For example, I customize the header row with borders and shading like this, and bold font size. I click new document based on this template. Now to apply my custom table style, I open placeholder for the BE table. I can adapt the content of my table, for example, removing some metrics. And to apply the style, I add additional argument, style, and here in the parentheses, I write the name of my style that I saved in Word document, which is my BE style. Now with the preview, you will not see this style applied, but you will see it when you generate a report. So first, let's copy this placeholder and use it in a Word document that I'm going to save as a template and use during the report generation from PKanalix. So now the table is specified as I did in the style. I hope with these all examples you now feel more confident to create reports in PKanalix. Before we end this video, let me give you some good practices tips that can help you when working with placeholders. First important thing to remember is that arguments in placeholders are case sensitive. For example, inline units must have capital U. Otherwise, you will get an error. Indent is the number of spaces that is used for arguments for each setting section. For visibility, you can increase it in the settings of the placeholder. However, be careful, if you copy a text, for example from a Word document, the number of spaces might be different from the one that has to be done in placeholder. With flow level, you can customize the compactness of placeholders. The higher the number, the less compact is the placeholder. Now, for each argument, after the colon sign, you must put space to properly interpret the line. For example, when you rename covariates modalities, respect first the indent and then the space. Also, if you get an error in a placeholder, which will be displayed as a message on top, do not select close. If you do it, you will close the widget and then lose the information that you put. Instead, you can directly edit the placeholder to correct the error. For more information about PKanalix, you can go to our online documentation, or you can watch our other videos on YouTube channel. And to stay updated with the latest information about different events and courses, you can follow our Monolix Suite LinkedIn page. Thank you for listening.